Hello, everybody. Good morning to all the children. Today, I'm going to speak to you about Wordsworth's very famous poem, Lines Composed a Few Miles Above Tintern Abbey. Now, you all know that William Wordsworth, was a romantic poet. He was a poet of the 19th century and he's known as the father of Romanticism. And he was a great worshipper of nature. His poems are comprised of nature poems, and later on, Wordsworth himself became the poet of man. Now, let me tell you that the way this poem was written, lines composed a few miles above Tintern Abbey. This first very important thing that I want to tell you about this particular poem is that it was written in one single day. When Wordsworth left Tintern and crossed the River Wye, and by the time he reached Bristol, together with his sister Dorothy, he was able to compose this poem. And this poem is very famous because of the easy flow of blank verse that he has used, the intensity of conviction that he has shown, as well as you can say the richness of imagery, as well as the melody of versification that you find in this particular poem makes it one of the paramount, eloquent, simple, inspiring poem, which is remembered even to this particular day. And why this poem was written? He was talking about after the poet Wordsworth revisited the banks of the River Wye after a period of lapse of 5 years. In and This gives a reference to the period of his absence from England during the time of the French Revolution, which took place in 1798. Now, when this revolution broke out, celebrating the ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity, Wordsworth's imagination was fired with the thought of fighting for such great ideals. And he thought, why shouldn't I go and join hands in the revolution and bring about a change in life? But when he went there and when he saw that the revolution is nothing but a military aggression, when people are just fighting and killing each other, there's so much of bloodshed, there is so much of misery, there is so much of torture on human mankind. He was very, very perturbed. And during this lapse of 5 years, he was absent from nature. Why he was absent from nature? Because he could not visit nature. He could not be in the company of nature. But despite his absence, he could still feel its presence. That is the presence of nature in that enclosed room, in that enclosed environment. And the poem begins with a description of nature. There's a paragraph where he says, 5 years have lapsed, and with it, the length of 5 summers and 5 long winters. But he still can experience and see the beauty of the lofty mountains, the long green landscapes, the little hedgerows, and the few encampments of the gypsies that are there. And he says this was what he had visited and seen near the river Wye previously before the revolution and that is the presence of all these beauties of nature before the revolution. But in that, after the lapse of 5 years, also when he has come back, he still can experience the joy of nature. And he says that when he was absent from nature, he says, this landscape had been to me as a it is to the forms of beauty have been to me as is a landscape to a blind man's eye. That is, I was not blind to the beauties of nature. Even in its absence, I could feel its very presence. Now, in the second paragraph, he's talking about the gifts that nature had endowed upon him. The first which gift that nature endowed on him was the gift of tranquility. That is, he says, the blood that coursed through his veins and reached his mind, that provided him tranquility and peace. That is, in hours of weariness, sensation sweets felt in the blood and felt along the heart and passing even into my purer mind with tranquil restoration. So, first gift of nature was tranquility, peace. That is, whenever he remembered nature, he felt harmony with nature, peaceful with nature. And then he says, the second gift that prevailed upon him and that he got from nature was that little nameless, he says, acts of kindness and of love. That is how nature makes you morally good. That is being in the company of nature. Because for him, nature was an educator, nature was a teacher. And nature not only helped him in the formative stages of his development in life, but at the same time he says it has no trivial influence as may have had on that best portion of a good man's life, that is his little nameless unremembered acts of kindness and of love. So it had taught me how to be good to others, how to be unselfish, how to be benevolent, how it is good not only to be on the receiving end, but also on the giving end. So, how many innumerable good little acts of goodness and kindness that he has learned by being in the companionship of nature. And thirdly, the most vital thing is that spiritual elevation that he felt from nature. The third gift that he receives is that after those little acts of kindness and of love, he says that blessed mood in which the burden of the mystery, in which the heavy and the weary weight of all unintelligible world is lightened. That serene and blessed mood in which the affections gently lead us on until the birth of this corporeal frame and even the motion of our human blood almost suspended, we are laid asleep in body and become a living soul. And while with an eye made quiet by the power of harmony and the deep power of joy, we see into the life of things. Now, let me explain that serene and blessed mood. What do you mean by the serene and blessed mood? That serene and blessed mood is that calmness, that you can say that peacefulness that has entered your body. And this, he says, this serene and that has entered into your whole corporeal, that is your whole body, your whole bodily frame is breathing that harmony, that calmness, that tranquility, he says, and it remains suspended in body. That means you just become, because you do not feel the presence of your body, you only feel the presence of the God within you, that spirituality within you. And because of the presence of that spirituality within you, of that divinity within you, you are able to see into the life of things. That is, every little detail is discernible to you and understandable to you. And he talks about that gift which makes, or rather brings about an amalgamation between God and nature and God. So his third quality was that mystic feeling, that mysticism that was there in nature. And naturally, the feeling of divinity. That is, nature is not only famous for its beauteous forms, for the beauty, but nature is also famous simply because it is a moral teacher, a guide, and a mentor, which helps in the development of individual's personality. And thirdly, this power of mysticism, this power of divinity, this power of spirituality, which you can perceive in nature. We are all the time so much bothered about the material pursuits in life. And there are so many miseries and so many problems and torments that we are facing because of these trials and tribulations in life. We forget to be close to nature. We forget to see nature. That is right from the day when we get up in the morning. I mean, early morning hours when we get up, we are so caught up with the thought of what we are going to do today, what are the different things that we have to do, and how we have to get ready, how we have to go either to the children to go to school, and the mature people have to go to office. All the time we are, I mean, this rush of the world that is there around us, and the busyness that is there, the tension that is there in our mind, makes us forget to see the early hours of the dawn, the chirping of the birds, the rising of the sun, the redness in the sky, and the little, you can say, the bees humming, or the insects flitting around the place. We forget that. We don't see what they teach you, how they teach you the patience with which they are working, and the love that they are showing in their work. We do not pay attention to any aspect of nature. So, this is the most important thing which Wordsworth has taught, and this is the first part of the poem. The second part of the poem is autobiographical, which I will talk to you in another lecture. I hope you have understood this first part, and this first part is very important because it talks about the gifts of nature endowed upon a man, and how the second part of this particular poem, which is autobiographical, it will bring about a turning change in the life of Wordsworth, that is, turning him from the poet of nature to the poet of man. Thank you.